Welcome back, everybody, to the KC Sports Report. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, and today I have the great pleasure to have my friend Chance Lebo of ESPN Wichita 92.3 and host of the Locked On Royals podcast on the show today. We're going to talk a little Chiefs running back room, but Chance, my first question for you is, how are you doing on this beautiful evening?
I mean, it's a great day here in Wichita. Beautiful. I think it's looking like 82 out. I just took the dog for a walk, so it's a beautiful day. And the best part about today is we're another day closer to football season.
That and the Yankees are coming to town. We get to watch Cags go up against the Bronx Bombers. But if you guys want any Royals coverage, go over to Locked On Royals. They are fantastic on YouTube. But with that being said, the Chiefs running back room has a lot of different faces in it this year. You're going into it with Isaiah Pacheco, who's coming back from a pretty gnarly injury last year. You've got Kareem Hunt, who you re-signed to a one-year deal. They drafted Bashard Smith in the 7th round, and they also signed Elijah Mitchell in free agency. And so, Chance, I kind of want to get your first, reactions to this running back room. Is there anybody that sticks out that you think could be a big-time contributor for this team?
I mean, the obvious one would probably be Bashard Smith. I know the two a lot of people are really high on. They like his versatility out of the backfield, something the Chiefs did not have last year, except for, the save 1 or 2 catches a game for Samaje Perine. But Smith is a lot more explosive than Perine ever was at any point in his NFL career. Smith coming in as just a rookie, I would assume it's going to take him some time to get some tread on those tires. But I think that this is an intriguing backfield. I think that Isaiah Pacheco comes in as your bell cow, giving him an entire offseason to get healthy. I'm somebody who believed that he wasn't 100% really at all in that back half of last season. The vision was rough. He ran into a lot of butts last season. But I think that you gotta go into next season preparing for him to be your RB1. Kareem Hunt is an excellent backfilling option if you need just an insurance plan. But I think this is a low ceiling, but also a pretty high floor for the running back room, because I don't think this is a running back room that'll be top 10 in the league, top 15 in the league, but I don't see them being the worst running back room in the league, that's for sure.
And I think that's a little bit frustrating for some Chiefs fans to hear, because the Chiefs are they were so explosive at wide receiver when they had Tyreek Hill, and then, last year before Rashee Rice got hurt and Xavier Worthy made flashes in the second half of his rookie season, but they really have never had an explosive running back to pair with Patrick Mahomes. And we've wanted it to be Isaiah Pacheco, and we even wanted it to be Kareem Hunt. And at this point, neither have been, the Saquon Barkley or Derrick Henry type of running back. And obviously, every NFL team can't have that. But there was a stat that came out, and I'll put it up on the screen right here. Isaiah Pacheco really struggled running the football last year. And I think that, obviously the Chiefs are trying to mix and match with a lot of different players. The way that I kind of see it is Pacheco is someone that's going to get a lot of carries on 1st and 2nd down, but Kareem Hunt is going to primarily be the short yardage running back, and Bashard Smith's probably going to play a lot on 3rd down because he's arguably your best pass-catching running back. He played wide receiver in college, and so it's almost like the Chiefs have one guy for every single situation, but they don't have like a definitive guy in that running back room.
Yeah, that's how I feel. And honestly, I think that's kind of how the NFL is leaning to. I think you have the extreme example with what we've seen from Saquon Barkley over the last year or so, and even to a certain extent Christian McCaffrey in San Francisco. But obviously he was spelled a lot by either Kyle Juszczyk or now Elijah Mitchell, who's with the Chiefs. But with the fact that you're having to pay quarterbacks, almost, $60-70 million a year, receivers aren't getting any cheaper, offensive linemen aren't getting any cheaper. You're seeing more teams kind of use the Moneyball approach to the running back room, where they're saying, we're not going to have a Derrick Henry, but if we can have a guy that we use on 3rd down, a guy that we use on early downs, and then a guy we can count on for some explosive plays out of the backfield, we kind of can put together a hodgepodge of guys in the running back room that can certainly hold their own at the NFL level. And I don't think that you're going to be surprised to see a Chiefs team that ranks near the top in the NFL in terms of success rate, because they get 5 yards in the early downs and they're good enough to convert on 3rd downs. But they're never going to be explosive as running backs. They were one of the worst teams in the NFL at explosive play rate as running backs, but they were consistently, week in and week out, near the top of the league in success rate. And I think that's one of the things that Chiefs fans are going to have to get kind of used to is, 5 yards is okay. 4 yards in a cloud of dust is going to get you a first down every 3 plays. So I think it's frustrating sometimes to watch as a fan, but at the same time, it wins a lot of football games. And there are some fans out there that I'm sure would love to win as many games as the Chiefs have.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they won 15 games last year, and they could have won 16 if they didn't rest everybody in week 18. So this is a team that is basically bringing back the entire cast that went to the Super Bowl, and you added Bashard Smith. And we still have Carson Steele. I don't know where he fits on this team, but they've got a lot of different guys that can do a lot of different things. I think the biggest complaint that I've seen over Twitter, and I think that there's some validity to it, the Chiefs didn't get younger at that position except for drafting Bashard Smith. Because, you signed Kareem Hunt, who's a veteran's veteran at this point, and Isaiah Pacheco's coming off of a pretty gnarly injury, and he's someone that I'm not sure he's going to be on this team next year.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I mean, I think that a lot of it has to just come down to finding value where you can find it. This was not a great running back market for free agents, and I don't think the Chiefs were ever going to be big spenders in that area. I mean, the fact that they didn't take one on day 2 of the draft certainly surprised me. I saw them as an easy fit for one of the local kids, whether that be DJ Giddens or Devin Neal. But at the same time, I mean, you get a guy in, Bashard Smith, late round pick, 7th round. Not only is he going to be able to help you sometime in the future offensively, but he's an elite special teamer as well, was an All-American at SMU and Miami before that as a special teamer. I think that's where you're going to see his value. And also, it's very early. I mean, we didn't, on June 9th of 2024, we didn't even know who Carson Steele was. And that's kind of the encouraging part of it. The Chiefs could very well go out and sign somebody or pick up an undrafted guy or pick up somebody on waivers that can certainly help contribute. And I think that's what we're going to see from them this year. They're going to look at the waiver wire, just kind of like we do with our fantasy teams. They're going to keep an eye on the waiver wire every week and see what kind of value they can add in the margins, because at the end of the day, I don't think that there was a running back that they could have added to this room to really move the needle a whole lot. And even if they did, the amount of money that you would have had to pay them compared to Isaiah Pacheco, who's still on a 7th-round contract, or Kareem Hunt, who seems to be on his last leg of his NFL career, or even Isaiah Mitchell, who basically got a glorified training camp invite, you're really not paying a whole lot of money to those guys. They started adding value in the draft to some key positions, the positions they needed to get younger at, like offensive tackle, and then in the secondary. So I'm not too upset with how they've managed the running back room, because at the end of the day, they weren't going to get a Saquon Barkley for pennies on the dollars. They weren't going to get a Derrick Henry for a cheap 1-year deal. That's just not how the Chiefs were going to operate this offseason. I come away with it pretty happy with how Brett Veach managed it, especially when you consider, the Isaiah Pacheco gets another 4 or 5 months to get rested, to get healthy. I think that is more important than anything they could have done on the free agent market.
So I actually have 2 big questions for you, and it kind of involves a player that I think needs to have an impact on this team and one player that might not have an impact on this team, and I'll get to those right after this break. The Hollywood Casino at Kansas Speedway is the place to be. With over 1,500 slot machines, 35 table games, 4 restaurants, and a new ESPN Bet sportsbook, there are plenty of ways to find your fun. For more chances to win, follow them on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Must be 21. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. At Rice Real Estate Group, they're more than just a real estate team. They're a full-service partner in residential, commercial, and investment properties. They specialize in guiding clients through every stage, from the buying and selling process to handling complex, short sale situations with ease. Their passion lies in the personal one-on-one care they bring to every client relationship, ensuring each experience is tailored, smooth, and successful. Here it's all about building trust, delivering expertise, and ensuring every client feels valued throughout their journey. For more information, call Marla Rice at 816-819-9333. Huge thanks to the sponsors that support this channel all off-season long. Now, getting back into the video, Chance, I want to ask you this, because it is so incredibly hard to find great running back talent in, rounds 4, 5, and 6, and even in the 7th round. Like, how often do you find an Isaiah Pacheco? There's a reason why those guys are outliers. And so when the Chiefs drafted Bashard Smith, obviously I was intrigued at the possibility, but at the same time, we kind of have to look at it like 7th-round draft picks don't hit all the time. Pacheco is the exception to the rule. And so do you think that there's, I don't want to say pressure on Smith, but do you think that there's a chance that he just ends up being a normal 7th-round pick and then that upsets Chiefs fans?
I mean, that's a really good question. I would say, I mean, yeah, there's a great chance that he's a practice squad guy that comes in. He could be very much like Luis.
Luis
Brazilian.
Reese Zamet.
Yeah. I almost had Zamet and Reese backwards, but yeah, I mean, he could very well be like one of those guys who comes in with a lot of intrigue in the offseason, is kind of floated as this next guy that can be a playmaker for this Chiefs team, and he just never pans out to be that way. And there's a long list of them for any NFL team. I mean, I can think about, multiple off the top of my head for the Chiefs, especially, recently with Justin Ross. Everybody expected a lot out of Jared Wiley last year. I mean, it's recently there's been a lot of those guys for the Chiefs that have been practice squad superstars, St. Joe superstars who, really come in with high expectations that don't really warrant it. And then at the end of the day, you find yourself disappointed that an undrafted free agent didn't make the team or isn't starting in week one. That's really the exception to the rule, except for when Brett Veach is drafting. And I would trust my life with Brett Veach drafting on day 3. If Brett Veach drafted me on day 3 in the NFL draft, I would honestly trust it because he seems to know something that everybody else doesn't. And with Bashard Smith, I think that the consensus opinion when he was drafted was, dang, that guy really does feel like a Chief, doesn't he? That guy feels like he'd be a good fit for the Chiefs. So I think that at some point they're going to carve out a role for him, similar to what we felt for Isaiah Worthy, who, is very different expectation-wise because Worthy was a first-round pick who was highly touted. But, at this time last year, we kind of believed, he'll probably be a gadget guy. He'll get some jet sweeps and fly sweeps and be used on screenplays. He ended up being the Chiefs' best receiver on the roster last season, save for an injured Rashee Rice. So I think that you'll be able to see him in some gadget plays. Andy Reid is the mad scientist when it comes to getting his best, most athletic players the ball. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen here with Bashard Smith, whether it be via special teams or on the offensive side of the ball.
When I think that his skill set really lends itself valuable to what the Chiefs currently lack on offense, because they have not really been explosive in the screen catching game for running backs. Like, that's kind of lacked since they had Jerick McKinnon. And so maybe this is an area where Bashard Smith can, step up in camp. And I think that once we get closer to training camp, the people in St. Joe are going to go crazy for Bashard Smith, and we're going to see a lot about him in, mid to late July. But Chance, my final question for you is there a player on this, running back room that you think is not a lock to make the team?
I mean, I think the two old guys in the room are definitely the two locks to not be on the team. It wouldn't surprise me if, I know it hurts a lot of Chiefs fans' hearts to hear this, but it wouldn't surprise me if Kareem Hunt was not on the 2025 roster, just because of the fact that, what we saw from him last year kind of felt like an anomaly. It didn't really feel like it was something that could be grounded in substance. I think that last year was not exactly inspiring, and what we saw from him, it was very much a result of the offensive line being one of the best in the NFL in the interior. And then Elijah Mitchell, like I said, it was a glorified training camp invite when they announced the deal. It felt like, everybody kind of got excited because they, went back to his NFL combine tape and were like, man, this guy ran like a 4.3. And at the end of the day, he got traded, they traded for Christian McCaffrey above him. He's coming off of a legitimate hamstring injury, which if you follow the NFL and fast guys long enough, fast guys and hamstring injuries don't really bode well. Hamstring is a very important muscle in terms of running fast. And so with Elijah Mitchell, he's got a lot of straight line speed, but in his career with the 49ers and one of the best offensive minds in the NFL, Kyle Shanahan, really struggled to carve out a role early in his career. And then once he did become the feature back, he did not impress them enough to serve as a long-term solution there. So I think that it's going to be interesting to see how healthy he looks when they get to St. Joe. But I wouldn't be surprised if he did not make the roster, because at the end of the day, I think there are 3 running backs that are going to make the roster, and he seems to be, for my money, I'd say there's about a 60% chance that he is either practice squad or on another team come September.
I definitely think that's the right way to think about it, because Elijah Mitchell, with all the injury history, and also, this almost screams when the Chiefs signed Ronald Jones. Like it looks good. Like it's a veteran that could come in and maybe compete for a job, but then it just doesn't work out. So I could absolutely see Elijah Mitchell being the guy that doesn't end up making this team, because what are they going to take, 4 or 5 running backs, especially with Carson Steele? Like, they can't take everybody. But Chance, I think we had a really good discussion about the running back room. It should be very interesting to watch, and we'll monitor this in training camp. But my final question for you is, where can the people find your stuff?
Yeah, so obviously I'm a part of the Locked On Royals postcast. I do a show after every single Royals game, about 15 minutes. If you're a Royals fan, obviously hop on by. And then I work at ESPN Wichita full time. I'm kind of the utility guy down here. I fill in. I do some shows here and there. My staple is my show What Are the Chances at the FanDuel Sportsbook down here, where we preview the NFL lines every Sunday morning live from the sportsbook. That's my bread and butter. That's kind of my baby right there. But just doing some shows down here at ESPN Wichita. You can see my name right there. It's spelled a little bit different, but if you want to shoot me a follow on Twitter, it's just at Chance Lebo on Twitter. And I try and put out as much sports content as I can, whether it be high school sports, college sports, NFL, MLB. I'm kind of all over the map. I do a lot of different stuff, but I appreciate you having me on, Michael. This has been a really, really fun time.
Of course, man. It was a blast. And guys, all that stuff will be linked in the description of this video. Hit that like button, subscribe for more Daily Chiefs content. And until next time, guys, thank you for watching this video. And as always, go Chiefs.